So as I said, as we go through this session, if you do have questions that you wish to put to the panel, please do enter them into the app, and we will then be able to address them later on. So, as I said, we've got a series of trends, and we're going to start with looking at mega trends, and in particular the emerging trends. I think it's fair to say that we've had some, very significant shifts in our generation, really creating a very significant change in business environment over the last 20 or 30 years. So if I can start by just asking each of you to give your views on what you see as happening in the business environment generally, and also how it's addressing your own individual businesses, that would be really very valuable to us. So if I may, and just literally go in order on this question, and start with you, Jason. Thank you.
Sure, Charles. Thank you. For me, what I'm seeing in our market is ever-increasing competition in every single component of what we sell. I can combine that with wherever we're selling in the business-to-business market, the procurement function that we're selling to is becoming more and more demanding. You put those two together and we're facing a really, really tough job to sell the products we sell at the right prices, and we need more and more data, particularly around our cost base, to be able to stay competitive.
Thank you very much. And Lisa?
As per the risk, we were, before today, we only worried one thing, that is, we really don't know who will disrupt our core business and from where. So what we can do, maybe only self-disruption. But today, I have another concern for Charles. That is maybe later. If I cannot understand your questions, I will speak in Chinese.
And Oleg.
Okay, so what we see is quite a challenging environment, very price competitive, very competitive for the brands, and it's not only the spirits market. In times like this, there are new requirements for the finance function, and finance should be much more involved into decision-making, into data retrieval, analysis. So information systems become more and more important for the businesses.
Okay. We are an advanced material supplier for industries like automotive, aerospace, and others. So we are very much impacted by some key trends that are happening in technology, and more importantly, in, let's say, sustainability. So there is a very strong request to become better in producing better materials with lower consumption of resources and lower emissions. Specifically for us, there are some key trends. Electrification of cars. We are, let's say, very much involved in this trend, providing materials for example, electrical cars with lithium-ion batteries, materials, and fuel cell. And lightweighting to reduce emissions, reduce consumption of fuel in aerospace and in automotive.
And that's, I think, very interesting. And to hear, obviously competition and the disruptive competition as well. I think it's evolving, and the internet is driving that, and technology driving that as well. And so we're clearly hearing about a very challenging environment for you all. Where do you think, we talked about the importance of the customer, where do you see customer trust coming into all of this? I mean, trust in business is often fairly low at the moment. Is that an emerging issue for you as well, or one you're handling well?
For example, for us, we partner with the major groups in the industry that I just mentioned, and the trust is, let's say, a fundamental part of this relationship because they have to see you as a partner in developing the products. So we speak about exchanging on technology, so there is a content of IP protection that needs to be, let's say, well established between us and our partners. They also need to see you as a reliable partner in terms of sustainability of your processes and in terms of capability to supply. Because when you supply, for example, a semicon fab or this kind of customers, you can easily create a huge damage if you're not able to supply on time, in quality, in specs.
So, and that's obviously your customers are typically other businesses.
Yes, it's business to business.
Whereas, Oleg, for you, your customers are typically, you're working through the retailers and then on to the end consumer. Does that make a difference to the answer?
We are thinking both about consumers and the customers, and we distinguish between consumers and customers. Consumers are people who are consuming our products, and for them, the quality, the brand, and the price is something that is of vital importance. And our commitment to the quality of our products is unprecedented. In terms of the customer, it's a very different type of relationships, and we also try to build trustworthy relationship between us and the customer so that we can generate growth together with them, including such initiatives as category management, as mutual join up, business planning, and many, many others.
And either of you, Lisa or Jason, any comment on that?
For me, really, it's about earning trust. Obviously, we're in the business-to-business market as well, but a lot of our customers have been with us for a long time, and the reason they are still with us is because we deliver what they want for a good price, and it's the solution they're looking for. Now, the competition that's coming in is effectively trying to disrupt our position through offering brand new things, and the challenge for us is actually emphasizing the trust people can place in us.
Thank you.
Our own business is for home appliances. I think now the biggest challenge for us, that is the end users' purchasing way is changed. Before, we just do B2B business. But now we have the chance. Also, this is a very big challenge for us. We still study how to do B2C business. And maybe for the companies, for all the home appliances, we can find a new potential of valuable things to redesign our supply chain.
Thank you. And moving on in terms of trends, one of the things that as I mentioned just now, is this report, which is about the open workforce. And by the open workforce, what we mean is the fact that more and more of the workforce is actually not the direct employees of companies. It is actually contractors, suppliers, and so forth. And we heard, in fact, Simon Henry of Shell this morning talking about the fact that Shell employ, I think, about 100,000 people, but they have about 1 million people that they rely upon. So 1 in 10 of the people who deliver their products are actually crucial to only 1 in 10 of the people who are crucial to delivering their services actually work for Shell, which creates a new set of challenges. I wondered how you see that in each of your organizations, and particularly looking at it from how you manage it from a financial perspective. And maybe I could ask you, Oleg, to start on that issue.
That would be a bit difficult question for me. I think in general that finance profession can be split into accounting or transactional part and into two parts. The first part being value protection, the second part being value adding. As for the value protection, that would be accounting, that would be all the transaction processing, all the more or less technical stuff. And that one more or less easily can be outsourced. Of course, there are always peculiarities of specific markets. Say, in Russia, accounting would need to have lots of understanding of how tax works, of how it's interrelated with the document flow, with other functions. So it's a bit more difficult to outsource. I think in the other parts of the world, it's a bit easier to outsource that part, which is value protection or technical activities. As for the value adding, I would say that that's, in my view, that's a core part of finance, and I can hardly see that part of finance being outsourced somewhere. It's effectively unique knowledge that companies are acquiring with years, that companies are gaining through experience, where companies are trying to attract the most talented people into. And I think that that itself creates a competitive advantage, and having a competitive advantage, I don't think that that's something which you would easily outsource and effectively make available for everybody else.
Jason, how would you, because I mean, Tony this morning actually talked about the fact you're against the trend, you don't like outsourcing, so maybe you could cover that.
Yeah, so if you look back 10, 15 years, us, like a lot of companies, really were looking at the outsourcing market from a labour arbitrage perspective. The unit rate per employee is obviously a lot cheaper in parts of India, for example, than central London. Once we built a number of teams over there and we started to get some sort of scale over there, we actually identified that having very large teams in one office, we're able to transact things far more efficiently than we were, say, in the UK. So we went from a price decision to an efficiency decision. Where I'd say we are now as a business is, I guess we're kind of constantly trying to test that model, as Tony would say. So, you know, if I look at my own team, I've got 3 generations, I guess, of teams outsourced to India, the initial transactional work, some contract accounting work, and very recently kind of customer-facing, business partnering teams actually working in the India office. And where I think BT's approach is very different to some others is we've then created large teams centrally in the group that I can call on as and when I need. So we have a number of cost transformation consultants who are internal experts at all the kind of techniques that you might typically get from an external provider. We have project managers who I can call on if I'm reorganizing my own team or reorganizing one of the other teams in my division. So what I've got really is a very flexible model of external people, internal people, as my workflow goes up and down. I think where it will go moving forward is I can see more need for that. I can see the finance function needing to do more for less. I can see us needing to be more flexible. I described the pressures we're facing from a competition perspective, and I need to be able to support the business really, really quickly should competition enter one of our markets. I think lastly, on an open workforce perspective, despite what Tony said this morning, my personal view is I can see the days of a head office being very large. I think those days are numbered long term. I can see people working in lots of different offices all over the world, multi-generation, multi-skill, all different types of employment contract. And the challenge for I guess, us as leaders going forward is how you meld all those different types of people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and different needs.
Thank you. And Lisa, what is your experience of outsourcing in China today?
Yes, the experience from Jason is very interesting. And also these are trends and competency in China for all the companies. For example, in our companies, to build open workforce system is a key strategy. So normally we encourage our all employees to achieve their goal through integrating open resources all over the world, rather than just using their own ability. So in the following discussions, if we have time, I will share some stories about this with you.
One story now would be very welcome.
Okay. For example, in our logistic business, okay, we offered 24 hours delivery and installation service within China. So every day, we have 90,000 vehicles to fulfill the commitment. But you cannot find all of them on our balance sheet or payroll. Why? Because all of them are our open workforce. And also, we use the internet technology to build an online platform. All the drivers, every day, in real time, they can bid for customer orders. Also, their performance is evaluated by the customer. Certainly, every day they use the phone, so their phone is the tool for working. Many stories happened like this. It's not just in here, also in China. We welcome open workforce, and we are not just use our own resources to develop the business.
And I think, Lisa, that's a really interesting example which demonstrates the power of technology and how you can use people more effectively, which is great actually for society as well. I think that's a really great story. So, Christian, have you at Solvay moved into outsourcing of your finance function, or?
Yes. I think also for a company like Solvay that make innovation the cornerstone, innovation in materials actually, the cornerstone of this strategy, you always need in the current environment to ensure that the service functions, let's say like finance, are, let's say, at the level of excellence of the best in class. And this is becoming a must and is being, let's say, assessed very frequently. We need to benchmark to check that we are on, because the best in class constantly raise their bar. For example, in Solvay, we had a major transformation of our finance functions a few years ago, but we constantly review these. In regards to what Jason was mentioning about outsourcing, so far we have implemented a kind of internal outsourcing with basically a shared service called the Solvay Business Solution that support, Solvay Business Service, that support basically the business unit. So in the business unit, we only have the controlling part of the finance work. And we have a shared service platform in each of the regions. We have one in Portugal, one in Thailand, one in Brazil, running the most, let's say, routinary activity for ranging from payroll to accounting, bookkeeping, close the books. And of course, to implement this, you need to be able to, let's say, standardize as much as possible the processes, leverage as much as possible technologies like print, scanning, connectivity, and so on. And then you can reap the benefit. In example, just to give an example, we leverage having 3 platforms in the 3 regions to shorten the time for the monthly closing, because we can have basically a 24 hours process running where we shift from one center to the other and basically they can never stop the process.
So, if I could just ask one follow-up question before we move on. One of the real challenges, it seems to me, with having outsourcing or shared service centres, and you were just talking there, Christian, about the process moving from one place to another place, is the ability to actually train people effectively, and particularly with increased use of technology, so that many of the basic functions now are not undertaken by individuals, they're taken by technology, and as a consequence, it's quite difficult to train people in those basics. How do you go about, how do you see that challenge? Is it a challenge to you?
It is for me. I won't pretend I've got an answer to that, to be honest, because I think it's something that's it's emerging, and certainly for me, I've seen recently that particularly the generation below me, people that are maybe just finishing their CGMA or equivalent, that there is a real rush to move to the more commercial side of accounting, maybe because actually they don't need to worry about more technical accounting that's being done by the shared services. So I think it's something we've got to take on going forward. I personally don't have an answer yet, which unfortunately.
Christian, yeah.
I have a different example, maybe out of the finance function, but still relevant also for finance. As a material supplier, similar to what Shell today, let's say, discussed, we have a lot of outsourced activity in the plants, in manufacturing, construction, building, maintenance, or even in logistics. Okay, how you are able to, let's say, guarantee that outsourcing, you still maintain the quality and you still maintain all the organization aligned, for example, on a key point, especially for a company like us, which is safety. These contractors are on site and they run inherently, say, dangerous tasks. Basically, there are two levers, in my opinion. One, of course, is let's say, aligning them on the culture, so a good supplier selection, training also for the suppliers about our plants, our processes, and make sure that we share the same vision in this regard. The other one is aligning incentive plans. So in Solvay, we have an incentive plan for the employees based also on safety performance, and this includes the safety performance of our contractors, not only of the internal employees. And in the contracts and service level agreement for our contractors, we established this kind of safety performance as well. And in this regard, surely finance play a key role in supporting the analysis of these, the setup of the contracts, and so on.
So there is a way forward, but I think we could also say the accounting profession generally could take on this challenge to help train accountants in this new world in a slightly different way. So if I can move us on then, and just talk about a bit about operating in the global world. If I take Diageo as an example, you sell traditional products, but you take the traditional products and take them into different countries. So, for example, you have Johnny Walker whiskey, which you take to Russia, and you have vodka, which everybody in Russia loves. I think you were telling me this morning, which you take to the UK. So globalization is creating new markets in an interesting way, and I just wondered, how does the CFO of the future, what does CFO of the future look like in terms of this new globalized world? And Oleg, maybe you could start.
Regarding the future, I think the future is where CFO is staying on the front line of commercial decision making. I think it's a responsibility and it's a task for the finance function to equip our commercial teams, our sales teams, with our marketing teams with the proper instruments and tools so that they can measure performance, generate insights, think more about business growth, think more about developing, and effectively it's finance who provides a different range of opportunities for the business in that respect. I think finance function is a function which should be driving decision-making on such stuff as pricing, as penetration to the new markets, launch of the new products, and it doesn't matter in what industry you are working, focus more and more is transferring from regular accounting to support of the commercial functions. I think if you will talk to the new CFO now, again, it doesn't matter in what industry the CFO will be working. Your conversation will be not about financial leverage or balance sheet or whatever. You'll be talking more about market shares, about growing your business, about performance of particular brands. And that's again an indication that finance is skewing more towards the direction of the commercial support. Gone are the times when CFOs were prudent, old-school accountants. Now, finance directors more and more are eager to take risk and manage risk. And they feel much more comfortable in general about the risk management. Of course, that doesn't mean that all the basics should get eliminated. No, it's like given. Finance professionals must be brilliant in everything which is core of the finance profession, treasury, corporate finance, of course, understanding of accounting, tax, that's given. But the focus should be more and more be skewed towards support of the commercial decision-making.
So, I mean, one of the things I was thinking there was you were talking about the importance really of everybody within the organization having some financial knowledge. And an important part of your role is to help them to get information which they can understand. So communication is very important. And would you, I mean, I would describe the CFO as moving towards being the co-pilot working in the organization. Is that a fair definition, Christian?
Yes. Yes, I think from, let's say, a provider of data or a provider of support is definitely becoming more a leader, a business leader, a partner, sometimes also a sparring partner for the CEO. Let's say, someone which is, since the beginning, participating in defining the strategy, drafting the strategy, bringing at the table a deep knowledge of finance, but also bringing the, let's say, capability to bridge finance with the other, let's say, functions and the business context. And when we look at globalization, as Oleg was saying, clearly it's a major, let's say, trend already ongoing, but accelerating. For example, in our industry, we know that 60% or 70% of the growth over the next years will be in Asia. And most of our investments in new plants and so on are also in Asia. That means that for a CFO, you need to, let's say, find good talents locally, train them, let's say, align the culture, align the system with, have them embarking in the team, playing well, but also leverage the talent pool that there is in those countries. We don't want to bring in people to tell them what to do, how to do. We want to bring in people to show what is our purpose, our mission, and leverage their skills.
And Lisa, do you have anything to add on this topic?
Yes. Just because we talked about the e-CFO, so in our companies, normally our CFO is required to have the cross-boundary thinking and capability. So we built a function unit, integrated financial, HR, IT, strategy, legal, risk management together. We find through this way can give a better support to the business. Anyway, one word, thinking like a CEO, doing like a COO, then we'll become a good CFO.
I think that's right. So thinking like a CEO, doing like a CEO. I like that. I think that's so you have to have two hats.
That's why every day I have a headache.
Okay, so moving on to the expanding role of finance, and I think we've heard about that in terms of the co-pilot and really supporting across the business. I think in that respect, I mean, you've been, Christian, expanding at Solvay in your traditional segments, the aerospace, automotive, and international, I think, and going into new markets, telephones or mobile phones, tablets. Those are obviously extremely challenging areas to be in. I mean, you're moving from medium-term life cycles to short-term life cycles. I'm not sure how one is more technical than the other, but it's going to require quite a lot of ability to handle changes in capacity and really quite significantly complex supply chain management. So how do you meet these on-demand requirements and particularly the speed and agility to exploit what are great opportunities, but
Yes.
require you to move very, very rapidly?
Yeah. In fact, we speak about, let's say, shortening life cycle, the necessity to become much more agile, flexible, in partnering with these big brands, developing a product that needs to be launched in a few months, industrialized, and maybe take, let's say, also the constraints in terms of, let's say, building a big working capital to support this launch, eventually investing. So all of these require very, very close coordination between all the functions involved. We speak about business, manufacturing, supply chain, and finance really play the role of coordinating these and interfacing the different functions. For this to be very effective, you need to have in finance to have people that really speak the same language as business. So they understand the technology, they understand the supply chain constraints and so on, and they bring to the table the knowledge of the finance part, including the cash constraints, including let's say, the tricky parts about compliance and so on. So what needs to be done, sometimes also to bring the R&D people, the business people, let's say, down to the earth and avoid them to, let's say, go. So how you do this? You do this building, let's say, as we said before, trust, relationship with the other functions. You normally don't do this, let's say, when the house is burning. You do this, let's say, in peacetime. You need to build, let's say, cross-functional teams, eventually having people that has moved from one function to another, so they are able to relate very easily with the other functions, understand the business. And so when a big opportunity comes, you can mobilize people from different functions very rapidly, build a task force, and deliver say, in a very short time. We had a big opportunity in business this year with a major player in these industries, and we were able, for example, to decide for a major capacity expansion with a significant capital investment in a matter of few weeks. This required to pull together information, pull together different functions, providing information, analyzing, assessing, and then, let's say, having the top management validating this.
So you mentioned there understanding the business, and that really is critical to undertake this coordination.
Yes.
This coordination role. And I think, Jason, at BT, the information and that is needed and the predictive capability are really important issues for you, and maybe you could expand on that a bit.
Well, I think the big thing that we were talking about before is, as an accounting profession, I guess, there's still far too much done in Excel. If you
Particularly in the banks, I think.
We're in the 21st century, and still, accountants' first port of call is download information and convert it some way in Excel in many, many situations. And I think we have to see a leap in technology there. We're trying to invest in systems where you physically cannot download into Excel, where everything is done in a big MIS type system. I think, and that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But I think the other point I wanted to draw out was, if you talk about banks, if you were working in derivative trading, for example, you would have all sorts of predictive models being able to give you early warning signals on how all of your positions are moving and trading. If you compare that to an average kind of industry company, those tools do not really exist. And if they do exist, they've been built manually in Excel, and they need manual intervention for someone to go and look at. That, again, we need a large technological leap for me, because it will save so much time. It will test the thinking that accountings have, and it ultimately will cut out a lot of errors.
I'm sure that's exactly right, and it's the ability then to do more for less, isn't it? In that process. And in fact, in the report that I was referring earlier, New Ways of Working, it's interesting there that in talking about the value of the finance function, 89% of respondents believe it would be beneficial to have stronger partnerships with the finance team when it comes to decision making. And I think the examples that you've just given really support that, and the importance also of having those core skills. So the importance of specifically trained project managers, and the ability to have integrated systems, which is what you've been just referring to, Jason. So in continuing on about the role of finance in terms of collaboration, we're seeing organizations, obviously, I think, working more and more with suppliers and customers and other business partners. So they are, their business model is not just their own organization, but includes everybody who they're both serving, and in terms of who is actually supporting them, their suppliers. So it's a very, I think that's a very significant change, and it also obviously, by having all these partnerships, gives the organisation, the company, the ability to be more flexible in terms of redeploying resources. So how does the finance function prepare to be effective in these collaborations? And Lisa, I think you had some examples of employee cooperation in this way.
Yes. Well, Charles, I prefer to use a story to answer your question.
I love stories.
Okay.
And I'm sure the audience likes stories as well.
So, in the rural areas of China, we have more than 30,000 distributors. Most of them are small business. It's very hard for them to get loan from the bank. Without enough working capital, they cannot grow faster. neither can we. My colleague, Mr. Liu Shui, his English name, Mr. Hudson. Really, this is a similar. Okay. He organized a mutual system to pull together the working capital need of his about 400 customers, okay, and lead them to discuss with the bank to secure about 200 million RMB credit line. So, and such systems, our customers is very easy to get a loan just with 20% safety deposit is okay. So, and such systems, the customers grew, I just say the figures, is grew by 20% in the first half year, okay? And in our group, for all the finance people, is self-motivated to look after for opportunity for our partners. Also, we encourage them to focus more on value innovation rather than just doing work as told.
It's a great story because you're absolutely helping the whole business and allowing, as you say, that what you're really doing is helping to expand the marketplace, which is so good for everybody. So thank you for that story, and the more stories, the better. So from everybody, stories, as long as they have some underlying evidence to them, would be great. We heard this morning that cash doesn't lie, everything else does. I'd like to have the genuine stories, but stories are great. So does anybody else on this collaboration side of issue have any stories they'd like to share?
I don't have one that can top either the size or the quality of the names of the individuals involved. But one of the things that I've really encouraged my team to do, we have quite a complex kind of network of pipes and tunnels all over the UK and parts of Europe. What I really encouraged my team to do was actually physically go out and see the network, because we sit behind a desk, go out and see what you can actually see. And one of our most junior members of staff went out to see a particular part of our operation, went and saw a number of things in one day, and actually very, very simply came back to the office and said, we do realise that we've got 3 different teams doing essentially the same thing, just with different names and in different parts of the organisation. They all kind of do the same thing. So we sat down with the operations director, went through the plans of how we could change things. Much smaller example than yours, Licia. But again, very, very effective of actually someone came out to try and understand my business and made a difference. And the individual involved got a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, so understanding the business again, it's just, you really can't beat that as if you're going to be a part of the team. So thank you for that. As we've already talked about in terms of shared services, many organisations have got shared services all around the world, and obviously part of the challenge is providing a 24-hour service, and therefore the ability to hand over the finance function, if you like, on a 8 by 8 by 8 or whatever it might be, for a 24-hour service and in many companies now, I think also looking for it to be 365 a day a year as well. So how does the technology allow that type of service, which is a huge improvement in terms of productivity, to operate? And I think you've been doing something like that at BT.
So we've done two pieces of work in this area. One, the obvious one around month end, and secondly around where you're bidding large kind of propositions to governments or what have you. Again, trying to operate that as a 24 hour a day function. So from a month end perspective, actually every single member of our team at a very practical level has a webcam on their desk, and they physically at month end hand over work at the end of the day from the UK to India or Budapest to India, and analysis, journals, work is done overnight so that the following morning when the UK team comes into work, they are able to deal with a kind of much richer set of data that they can then sit down with the business and go through. That has worked really quite well. I guess it's easy in one sense to do because the nature of the work is very definitive. Where I think we're trying to be a bit more daring is around building customer propositions. So this might be you're trying to sell a very large contract to a business or government, and the bid team that are kind of locked themselves away, sweating away, trying to come up with exactly what the solution should look like. Again, in my experience, the finance team have often struggled to keep up with the number of ideas and scenarios that are needed to really make that process effective. So we've trialed sending that work again overseas overnight, and I'd say at the moment, Charles, it's to mix effect. But we're gonna keep going because it is the future. As I said at the start, procurement departments are getting far more slick. They're becoming far more demanding. They want much more information. They want it much more quickly. And the finance function that is supplying a lot of that data has to keep up. So we've got to keep cracking on with that. And from a technological perspective, it comes down to making it very easy to communicate what is going on, either through video or kind of conferencing type facilities.
I mentioned earlier that the world had changed quite dramatically. I had a colleague some time ago now, as you'll be able to tell from this story, who was horrified when he found that information could be sent to Australia overnight and he'd get a response in the morning. He'd always worked on the basis that if he sent something off to Australia, it would come back in 4 weeks' time. So he thought that was the time to retire, and did. So I think we see a very different world that we're into at the moment. And I think, Christian, you've been using the centres also for a much faster close at Solvay.
Yes, in this specific example, as I mentioned before, technology was a strong enabler, of course, because you can outsource internally to these shared, remotely to these shared service some activities if you can, let's say, leverage some technology like scanning, like for invoices, for let's say other documents, like, and then of course you have a common ERP platform, you have common, let's say, systems. Other cases where we leverage a lot of technology for collaboration, like Jason was mentioning, say having to have a fast collaboration and very effective collaboration between teams which are spread across the globe, R&D, commercial, finance, supply chain. Tools like telepresence, like web conferencing are now became really indispensable, basically.
And what is your close today?
Sorry?
How long does it take you to close at a month end?
No, okay, that was the other case. Basically, in the other case, the possibility to, let's say, standardize task and, let's say, outsource internally using the technology gave the possibility to have different centers in different time zone performing the same task and having so the process passing from one center to the other, allowing a continuity, or let's say, of the monthly closing instead of having an interruption at night.
So we're getting more and more efficient.
Yes.
And I think Gartner have forecast that by 2025, something like a third of finance jobs, the current finance jobs, will have gone. So it will be interesting to see how things move. It also means that all of us need to work very hard at remaining relevant. So if I could move on to talking about how our businesses we maintain the sustainability of our organisation. And again, I think we've heard in terms of Hire how you've risen to being the #1 brand in consumer appliances, Lisa, and also one of the top 10 innovative companies as per Newsweek, with I think over nearly 16,000 patent applications. So a very innovative company. And I wondered if you might give us another story in terms of how you've had the ability within Hire to transform the organization, managing the workforce quite differently. It'd be very interesting to hear.
Well, anyway, this is a very big question to me, so no story.
No story, okay.
No story. In the past several years, we have tried a lot how to transform the company. So we started it from organization disruption and changed the structure from hierarchy to flat networking. So the company is changed from 1 unit to 2,000 micro enterprises. And for each micro enterprises, we give them 3 rights, including decision-making, people selection, and value distribution. So overall, the performance evaluation and reward system also is changed from a fixed salary system to a VAM-based model. Maybe, I don't know if everybody understands VAM. It's similar to pay for performance, something like this. And certainly, the business process also is changed from sequential to parallel. Anyway, we tried to build some new system can enable our employees to be entrepreneurs. This is our dream, and we prefer to achieve it just because we believe there are no successful enterprise, just the enterprise changing with time. Thank you.
So you now a much wider range of teams,
Yeah.
Who are
Very flat.
very flat.
Very flat.
You manage their performance on a daily basis, and they are incentivized in their individual teams.
Yeah.
What risks do you see in that model, or what risks do you manage in that model?
In fact, just because I have worked for this project for many years, many people from the companies, from professors, they ask me the same questions. at the beginning, they just worried about the managing cost. And then they understand to use the internet, new technology, we can keep the cost very low. So no need to add the managed cost. And then they asked another question, so that is how to keep the short benefits and the long-term strategy. So maybe this is a big risk. And also, we tried many ways to solve this problem. That is, for all the micro enterprises, why we encourage them to become entrepreneurs, just because we hope they can find with their own ability. It's not fight with the company. They focus the customer's value, the customer's demand. And also, we have some owner of the platform. This owner's role, the key role is to, look out for opportunity and to create new micro enterprises to achieve or catch such opportunity.
And how does this empowerment work in any of your organizations? Christian, Oleg, Jason? How do you empower people?
I think our business has been in turnaround phase, probably 2007, 2012, and frankly there was no empowerment during that phase. It was very kind of locked down. As you'd expect from a company, as Tony described this morning, 70p share price, lowest it's been for many years. I think where we're going now, by the way, incredibly impressive, Licia. Again, I can't quite follow up with such a good example. But what we're really trying to do now is create big jobs for the most talented people and make them really accountable for big areas of the business. So getting rid of lots of layers of middle management so that people right at the top of the organization have the power to make decisions very quickly and get right into the heart of the organization very quickly. And I think it's been an interesting shift for me personally, seeing that from a really tight control to one of we've got to let the brakes off a little bit now.
And actually, this is one of the things that appeared in the report we've issued today. Actually, difference at different times, and I think the empowerment in changing circumstances, control or let it go is a very very interesting example. So there are one of the things that again we discovered in our report was how companies, which are the most successful companies, and in that respect, what we found was in general that those organisations that embraced this open workforce, using many partners, were more successful, and particularly because they gave them the flexibility. Is there anything, Lisa, that you'd like to add from what you've talked about in terms of delivering competitive advantage?
I think we just discussed a lot around how to use new technology and how to use open workforce. And we have talked many stories, and it's covered all the different functions, I think. So anyway, we think to use the new technology and the internet is very important, but the most important thing is still people. So it's people to create the story. I will leave another story to next time. It's not
Okay.
today to explain.
Okay, but I
So-
think I mean, you cannot be more right that, you know, ultimately the most important asset is the whole area of people. If I can then move us on to the whole area of leadership, which is our last section today, and I'm going to come to your questions very shortly, all of you out there. The whole area of reputation, Oleg, is hugely important, and reputation is an incredible asset. We were talking earlier about, you know, the different prices for local vodka in Russia as opposed to imported vodka in Russia, and a lot of that, I'm sure, is built upon the reputation of the brands. So how do you create a support system which allows both the financial and the non-financial data to allow you to take effective decisions in terms of taking decisions to impact or to support your long-term success?
Right. Reputation is something which is very difficult to build. It takes a very long time to build it, and it can be ruined very easily in 1 minute. And operating in an emerging market creates even more issues because why big companies come to the emerging markets? It's for the long-term opportunities, for the long-term growth. Currently, in the short term, they may have very low profits, but long-term opportunities are very high. And why emerging markets are so different from the rest, from the developed markets? Of course, many instances, but some of them are particularly in the area of reputation, controls and compliance. In emerging markets, you may see practices which are not very common in developed parts of the world. And secondly, in emerging markets, you would see legislation which is also very different. Sometimes it's unclear, sometimes it's open for interpretations, sometimes it's changing so fast that it's difficult to track it. And if you operate in the industry which is highly regulated, be it tobacco, be it spirits, be it pharmaceuticals or banking, you are subject to potential issues that may happen. And if the sales team wants to get the competitive advantage through the incompliant practice and get a small benefit in a short-termistic view, they probably do not realize that it can hurt really big a corporation globally, because what's happening in the small market can be replicated by investors, by the shareholders to the whole corporation, and the whole corporation will suffer. And therefore, what I see in emerging world is that more and more companies are ready to invest more and more into compliance just to prevent those issues from happening at the very beginning. And of course, to build a control system itself is an expensive thing, and it's quite a difficult decision for many companies, because it requires, as I said, lots of investments to do that. But it really pays off. And what's role of finance there, and how can finance help in promoting that idea? First of all, to keep the house in order, make sure that from pure finance perspective, all such things as statutory accounting, taxes are all clean, and it would never be an obstacle for the development of the company. It will never be an issue for the government. Finance would never put the company under attack from this perspective. Secondly, we always hear that finance are custodians or guardians of controls and compliance, and that's really true. Finance, as Christian and Lucy and Jason mentioned, currently are business partners and thinking across the board. And finance are somebody who oversees the whole process, sees the business from the very beginning to the very end. And effectively, they are probably the exceptional people who can raise their hand to say, no, that's a practice that we don't want to take because the consequences may be very damaging to the reputation and to the ultimately financials of the company. And the third thing that should be taken into account is that being white as in white, being extremely compliant, actually becomes a competitive advantage. Just think if a business is built on a platform of short-term incompliant opportunities, it's not a sustainable pattern for growth. If you have a solid business practices, if you know that your business practices are built in such a way that nobody would never have any type of issues with you, if you are considered a socially responsible company, a good citizen, corporate citizen of the country, then I think it creates quite a significant competitive advantage for the company.
Thank you very much. And so, I think that last point really resonates. You've got to be focusing on the medium to the long-term business success and ensure that overlies all of your decisions.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we've got quite a few questions here. I'm not quite sure where best to start. I think I'd like to start by really two questions. But the first is, with this changing role that we've been talking about, and a lot of issues coming here from empowerment, flatter structures, being the co-pilot. How do you move from being? What do you need in terms of training and support? And how do you get from being, or get to being a CFO today? And how will you remain a CFO? What do you see as what's going to change over the next 10 or 15 years? And maybe, Christina, you could start with that.
Yes, we already discussed about the need for the CFO to be a business leader, so not only, let's say, a finance leader and know very well the business. I think another important feature already today, but even more in the future, will be to be a very good communicator. When I say communicator, I mean both internally within the company, being able to explain to all the other functions the financial consequence of all the possible decisions and so on, but also externally. It becomes even more and more important to be able to explain externally, as today the Shell CFO explained very well, to explain complex business models in simple words, to be able to explain the value generated by the company to the investors. Many investors are becoming more and more sensitive about sustainability, for example. So we need to be able to explain to the outside world the projects, the efforts done internally in regards of innovation and sustainability, in order to give a better view of the underlying quality of the financial results beside the crude numbers. And in this regard, surely there is much to do in terms of improving communication skills in the finance function.
So communication skills would be your number one issue. So you can do wonderful work, but if you can't explain it and get your messages across.
Exactly. I come back to what Jason was saying about Excel. Of course, for most of the controllers or accountants, if you take out Excel, it's like cutting an arm. But in reality, what we see is that in this regard, they should become more PowerPoint men, because you need to do that. You need really to have well understood your figures, have digested them and be able to explain in very simple words to drive action.
So, how would any of you, Oleg, Lisa, Jason, what's in you're all young people aspiring to be great business leaders. You're already pretty good leaders. What are your own personal career development plans? What are you concentrating upon right now to move to the next stage?
I have one suggestion. That is, take the change as opportunity, no any excuse. Try to add value in advance. Then maybe after 5 or 10 years, they can become a very good CFO or CEO.
Change is an opportunity. I couldn't agree more. Oleg, what's in your personal career development plan?
Can I elaborate on the change as an opportunity? I just do remember a very nice story about one Frenchman who, during the times of the Great Depression back in 30s, came to the United States and started to do some business. And actually the business went reasonably well, and then it went exceptionally well. And in 20 years, he decided to resign and sell this business. And at the ceremony, somebody asked him, how come that you came in the middle of the deep crisis and were able to invest quite a pot of money into the depression economy, and where did the confidence come from? And he said, you know what, I'm French. And when I came to the US, I didn't speak English. Nobody told me there is a crisis. So, to some extent, I think we fear something which in reality is very easy to overcome. So, in some areas, probably it's the right thing to do. When you see something completely unachievable, is just close your eyes and go forward, and you'll be surprised how easily you will achieve that.
And Jason, what's in your plan?
I always seem to follow the people with really, really good stories about things. I think for me, the two things I would say. One, if we're moving to a world where the structures are much flatter, actually the role of the leader, as I see it, is much more about creating a kind of healthy tension within the team so that you've got peer-based challenge, peer-based control of the organization. Whereas historically, it's, you are responsible for that, go look after that. It is all of you are responsible for all of that. And that, I think, from my leadership perspective, it's how I can encourage that peer-based challenge to happen. I think, secondly, from a very personal point of view, it is taking, I guess, the inspiration from the delegates this morning. I've got to move out of finance myself. I think it's something that is really important to see how what it's like on the dark side, I guess. That's something that I want to do personally next up.
And that's business understanding again, isn't it? So, a very different one. This is somebody posing a potential threat to the finance function and saying that if we are moving into the commercial space to be at the heart of decision making and putting collaboration for shared results at the forefront, as this person believes we should, how do we prevent the danger of the IT director moving into our space? Is it a concern? Or should you just take over the role of the IT director?
What's the key question?
So I think it's about if the systems are becoming much larger, if I've got this wrong, whoever's asked this, by the way, shout, but if the systems are becoming larger and shared services are becoming larger, actually, is that role bigger than the kind of finance role going forward? Are they encroaching on the finance space? There's a great thinker out there somewhere. I think probably yes is the answer, because as we described before, the mechanics of what are going on in shared services and the like are the core of every business. And actually, if a lot of the accountability for that is devolved to another, I guess, part of the organisation, there is an absolute risk that could happen. Yeah.
Christian.
Yeah, in my view, sure, in this, let's say, transition, there is some room left maybe to share service or even outsourcing, let's say, to take over. But I think that there is a big value to be, let's say, captured by playing at the interfaces between the different functions and playing, or even at the interfaces between the different companies within the same supply chain, as we discussed before. And there is the place where, let's say, our role can have a big impact. Say, playing really at the interfaces. Eventually, of course, leaving room to IT or to shared service to take over activity in the past we were covering, but maybe there is more value to extract there for us in the future.
Well, I think the whole IT piece has come through in quite a few of these questions. Your comment on Excel has generated 2 or 3 questions. And maybe just a final question, therefore, to the panel would be: who are the best examples to you of a company that really has managed IT particularly well? And it may be that you all say your own companies.
Managed what?
Which is an example of a company that has developed its information technology particularly well. Somebody that you admire and wish to emulate.
The examples that I've read about personally, Marks and Spencer's and Zara, 2 clothing retail brands in the UK. And from what I understand of those companies, they have kind of live feeds from the shop floor of what is selling, what trends are occurring, what customers are saying about particular garments. And that customer feedback can go all the way to a warehouse, be it an in-house warehouse in Zara's case or an external supplier in Marks and Spencer's case, so that they can literally kind of go, red sweaters are selling out, send more. And I think, that is a really, really good example of IT, and something that I personally would want to inspire to, just getting that information flow all the way through the business.
I can give another experience. That is, how to say, for the finance, so we keep the information, we keep the transformation from in series to 0 distance. For example, every day we will receive the information from our end users, and then we have a special team to collect the information and dispatch the information to the factory. Then the factory, the technicians, engineers, they will study and find what's the problem. But some problem may be from our end user. So the cycle is the process is very long, and the cycle sometimes to really solve the problem, maybe it take more than 30 days or 40 days. And then we use the IT technology to establish a platform to involve all the vendors working in the platform. So every day, they can see the problem from the customer, the end user, immediately. And so now, it's no need our people to solve the to dispatch the information. It's all the vendors. This is the problem, the complaint from the end user, and then they deliver the solution to the engineer who supply the service in the place. And also through such a system, we find is also drive all the vendors to improve their technology and introduce new product to the factory. So maybe just...
and that provides real transparency, as you move forward.
Information and transparency.
So I think we're now out of time. I think we've covered really a very wide range of discussion this afternoon. I think we all know that we're in a very competitive marketplace. We have demanding customers. We have business disruption. And technology is both supporting and challenging what we do. We've then talked about a whole range of different elements and the importance of trust and partnerships and the difference between what happens in a B2B business as opposed to a B2C business, the importance of the finance function having core skills and not losing sight of the basics, the importance of culture across the organization and having a common culture. And we've then moved into the overall role and its coordination role, absolute criticality of understanding the business, and the finance function cannot sit in a corner. It has to get out there and understand the entire business. The support of systems, how you sort of link between empowerment and control and where innovation sits in all of that, and the emerging focus on and importance of sustainability and in particular the long-term business success, and in that regard critical to for every business to really understand its business model and the environment in which it's operating. And I think we've seen that, you know, in this very challenging world, that challenge is actually an opportunity, and we need to make it happen, as you were saying earlier. And really to finish, we're seeing the CFO as a co-pilot, a business leader as well as a finance leader. But Lisa, you talked about thinking like a CEO and operating like a COO or a CFO, which is that balance of the two, and those we need to wear today two hats. So with that, if I could just remind you, you can download this particular report that we've referred to quite a lot this afternoon, New Ways of Working, Managing the Open Workforce, through your app. And now I'd just like to thank our speakers. I think you've been absolutely brilliant. We've had some great stories, some great examples, a great view of where the CFO role today is and where it is going. So thank you very much indeed, Lisa Tan, Oleg Parioff, Christian Maloney, and Jason O'Malley. Thank you very much indeed for your contributions. And thank you for your attention, and thank you for your questions.